Oh, this should be good. What caused the outburst that ruined your D&D session? Part 1. My DM screwed up because I accidentally outplayed him. This happened in the game I'm currently in. I've been playing a necromancer. Frankly, I'm not great at spellcasters, but I've been trying new things in games just to see how they go. A gnomish necromancer who is a city girl and not at all woodsy is way outside my usual zone. I've been having a lot of difficulty at a mechanical level playing this character because, well, I just don't do it often. But the other players have been pretty patient and helpful as I struggle like a brand new player to do something I'm really unfamiliar with. Hell, I didn't even realize that the Paizo website has non-Paizo published material in it. So the bloodline I used is actually third party, but the DM let me go with it anyway after he read it through. So I spent the first 3 sessions of the game not being all that useful. Level 1 sorcerer. She can do a 1d3 cantrip, and that's about it for offense. She can do a little scouting, because being a gnome, it turns out, I get a +4 to sneak, which means she actually outsneaks the druid just by being small. However, as a character, I find her interesting and fun to play, so I've been struggling through the mechanical crap. After fighting hobs and goblins all campaign, suddenly we get confronted with ghouls. Holy shit. So Katrina runs forward and uses the command undead feat from that third-party bloodline, and bam! 2 of the 4 ghouls are under command. She orders them to sit down and stop moving so that A, they'll stop attacking the party, and B, so the party won't destroy them because she wanted minions. On their next turn, the DM confirms the order, sit down, don't move. Okay, the ghoul next to Katrina from a sitting position attacks her, damn near kills her. I was livid. I built this character to do one thing. I made some mistakes in the initial build and had various skills, spells, and abilities taken away because, well, I fucked up building her. But she was meant to do one thing for sure. Control undead. I knew the rules for controlling the undead, and now I have to lawyer/genie-proof every order? Sit down, don't move, isn't enough to keep them from attacking her? She was paralyzed from the ghoul's attack, and I figured that was it, but the other players managed to save her. I didn't care. I mentally checked out at that point. If I couldn't even control undead, if I was going to have to actively outguess the most malicious interpretation of orders at every turn, what was the point? We were at the end of the session, and so I just left. It was pretty clear to everyone that I was angry, which is also a very atypical reaction from me when gaming. I emailed my DM and said that I was done. Let her have died in that field. But my DM apologized. There's a little line in the description of Command Undead that says they treat the caster as friendly. He'd missed it because he was annoyed that I'd thrown a huge wrench into that planned encounter. Dominating even 2 of the 4 ghouls made the encounter much easier than he'd intended. He'd been a bit spiteful. I'd missed that line too because I was angry and not thinking clearly. We talked it over. Mostly, he just apologized, and we agreed on a solution to rewind the game and redo the last 30 seconds of that session when we started the next one. From the point where the Control Undead took effect, we'd replay. In the end, the party still killed my ghouls, the dicks, but that's the breaks. No minions for Katrina yet. It's one thing if the party reacts, well, predictably and breaks your toys. It's another if the fundamental rules of reality suddenly stop working, which is how I was looking at the DM's fuck-up. Things have worked better since then. Katrina managed to control 4 skeletons later, though she's now expended 3 of them. The DM is willing to just accept that Katrina is careful to keep the skeletons 5 feet or more away from the rest of the party so they don't get bitey. The party has realized that Katrina having minions is actually pretty good for them, and the DM only gets particular about orders when it really matters. Like when Katrina ordered her skeletons to enter a room and kill everyone inside. The plan was to send in the boneheads, then stop them and loot the room. If there had been an important NPC in there who was killed, that would have been fair. Katrina did say, kill everyone, and the DM and I agree that kill everyone who isn't important is too complex an order for them. Maybe kill all the hobs and goblins would work, but I didn't think of it in the moment. As it turns out, there were no prisoners to rescue, but our barbarian did follow the skeletons after a moment, but he got stuck near the door fighting a hob. The skeletons cleared the room, turned around, and at that point Katrina ordered them not to move. The last hob got stabbed in the face, and all was well, though 2 boneheads did get expended. There had been a lot of hobs in that room. I was angry enough to quit a campaign with my buddies. It certainly ruined that session for me. Thankfully, my DM isn't an asshole and realized that he'd screwed up both on the rules themselves and by getting spiteful when things hadn't gone according to plan. He's been using a pre-written module, and it's clear the writers never expected the party to have a necromancer. The game has been a lot of fun since we worked things out, and he's finding other ways to make it fun challenge. So, while one session was ruined, thankfully the whole campaign wasn't. We were able to work things out like adults. Now this is a very opportune question, as I just had a session that was ruined for me last week. Maybe sharing it here will aid in getting over the last of my frustration about the whole deal. To give context to it, I need to explain that in my group, I have come to be known as that guy that kills off his characters. They claim I reach a point in which I kind of off-flick a switch and go, okay, time to die now, in a session. It started a while back. We were playing a Lord of the Rings campaign in which I played a rider of Rohan. The party was nearing the end of the campaign, about 2 sessions left to go, when we got trapped by an unending army of orcs heavy on our trail. Eventually, they caught up, and it was clear we were going to die. All other party members were on foot, but mine was on horseback and the best rider in the party. So I decided to command them to split up from me, and lured the orcs, making them give chase to me alone. It was almost the end of the campaign. It was a do-or-die moment. The gambit felt noble and courageous, and I even had a slim chance of making it out alive after all. My horse was well-trained and very fast. Alas, the gamble worked in taking most of the orc rabble away from the party, but I was eventually caught and had to face the leader of the orcs, and I died in combat. Everyone started giving me issues on how I had made my character kill himself. I felt that it had been a noble act at the end of a long campaign, and even though my chances were low, I had some. So I was comfortable with my character's fate, but the party just felt it was needless and foolish. Then, in a D&D 5e campaign, I was playing a fighter that found himself in a tricky situation. We were in parley with the executioner of an enemy kingdom who was escorting the king's ambassador, a weaponless NPC trying to talk the PC's party of level 6 adventurers into surrendering. The conversation dragged on, but by the end, the paladin of the group took umbrage at the fact that the NPC had clearly lied to us throughout the conversation, and things were reaching a boiling point. My character was a nobleman champion, and I played him as having a sort of paladin-like code of ethics. So, when finally the paladin decided that if the ambassador was not going to submit to the party, instead of the party submitting to him, that meant it was time for action. Things broke into a brawl. The paladin attacked the ambassador with a divine smite that made about 40 damage on a 6 HP level 0 NPC. He was crushed into pulp with one blow, and my character lost his shit. I saw it as overkill, and a failure on our part to navigate a social encounter without resorting to violence. I also saw it as murdering a diplomat instead of engaging his guardsmen and the king's executioner, who were the real NPCs to fight. So when the encounter ended, my champion decided he had had enough about traveling with said paladin, and since the party sided with the paladin, then that meant I was going to have to leave, which I did. Then I got killed by a group of soldiers that I mistakenly thought I could take on, so technically the character killed himself twice. Once by leaving the party, and once by actually dying. But again, my decision to leave felt reasonable to me. The paladin of the group had murdered a king's ambassador outside of combat in an official act of parley, and turned him to pulp with his mightiest smite in one surprise hit. The party just saw it as entirely reasonable, and me as having made another character commit suicide. Then, last week, we were finishing a long adventure, the ending to a big overarching plot of the campaign. By then, I was playing an eldritch knight that belonged to the order of knights of a king gone mad. And I mean possessed by the devil levels of mad. His crimes against his own people were many and brutal. Still, he was my king. Along the way, a player switched characters and joined the party half a session before the confrontation with the Mad King, playing a knight of a rival order from a rival kingdom to my own. And I mean rivals as in, we have been at war for 300 years and we have both been anointed as knights for the express purpose of killing each other, level of rivals. But the session was almost done, no time to actually roleplay it. We just went, okay, yeah, sure, you seem trustworthy. Care to join us in our noble quest to stop the Mad King? At the confrontation, as a player, I knew that another player at the table planned to kill the Mad King. It was common and open knowledge. Still, the characters did not know this, and my character was under the assumption we were there to stop the Mad King, possibly exorcise him, even, and save the kingdom. So, of course, this new character that I should have challenged to the death the moment we saw each other but didn't for expedience reasons, went on to kill my king in one blow. And my character lost his cool and immediately attacked this other character, quickly then realizing that his character had way better items, did way better damage, and was way better in terms of HP than me. So after my one strike and avoiding one of his, I misty-stepped my way out of combat and then ran away. The group again started giving me their speech about how I just killed off another one of my characters and how I always suicide my characters and how I had other options and had been rash and not strategic enough in my actions. And even the DM jumped in to explain that the king was impossible to save anyway because his soul had been lost by the possession from the demon that held him, which he added as a Deus Ex Machina piece of info to try and defuse the situation. And I just had it. I don't mind losing a character for the right reasons, but I'll be damned if I'll keep one for the wrong reasons. This whole thing felt like being told off for actually playing the character to the bitter end. Like being criticized for not just renouncing the character's personality and backstory so the party could remain together and keep on adventuring. I had half a mind of just telling them I had enough of this, grabbing my things and leave. Luckily, my wife reminded me we had to be at my brother's house later that night, and so that worked well. Gave me reason to just leave the session early and go, which I did. The session was absolutely ruined for me. Not for how it ended as a story, but for how it ended for me as a player. I've been chewing on this for days. Must admit, sharing it in an answer does provide some escape to the frustration, though. Thanks for asking. And hey, if you're listening out there, thanks for sharing. Sorry you had to deal with such a shitty situation.